will be. Good evening, everyone. Today is July 23rd. The time is now 6:12 p.m. and this Citizens Police Oversight Commissioners meeting is hereby called to order. I am the chair of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission. My name is Hassan Bennett, and I will be facilitating this meeting. This meeting was properly advertised pursuant to the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act. And now we will go into roll call. Commissioners, please acknowledge you are here when you hear your name. Commissioner John Solomon.
Present.
Good evening, Commissioner Solomon.
Good evening.
Commissioner Hakeem P.A.
Commissioner PA present.
Good evening, Commissioner P.A.
Good evening.
Commissioner Michelle Enix Kenny.
Commissioner Michelle Enix Kenny present. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Commissioner Latanya Whitehead.
She was here. Ooh, let's see.
She's present. I think she's trying to speak.
Technical difficulties, but for the record, Commissioner Whitehead is here. Commissioner Gilberto Gonzalez.
Commissioner Gonzalez present.
Good evening.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Commissioner Erica Stewart.
Commissioner Stewart present. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. And our Vice Chair, Commissioner Malika Rahman.
Good evening, everyone. Vice Chair Rahman is present.
Good evening, Commissioner Rahman. And of course, I've already acknowledged myself. I am Hassan Bennett, and I am present.
Unmute me.
You are unmuted.
Chair, you
Commissioner DeVos, I am also present. Am I able to be heard?
Chair, can you confirm that you heard her?
I can hear, and that is Commissioner Melanie DeVos. Good evening, Commissioner DeVos.
Good evening, Chair. And to the fellow chairs, fellow commissioners, and to the staff.
My apologies, Commissioner DeVos.
Uh-huh.
Has everyone had a chance to review tonight's meeting agenda?
Yes, Chair.
If anyone has not had a chance to review tonight's meeting agenda, could you please say so now? With everyone viewing tonight's meeting agenda, do I hear a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda for tonight. This is Commissioner Gonzalez.
That is Commissioner Gilberto Gonzalez motioning to approve tonight's meeting agenda. Does anyone second that motion?
This is Vice Chair Rahman here. I second the motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda.
With our VP seconding that motion, we now have a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda. All in favor to approve tonight's meeting agenda, say aye.
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 And with that, tonight's meeting agenda was approved. Has everyone had a chance to review the meeting minutes for June 2026?
Yes.
Anyone did not have a chance to review the meeting minutes for June 2026, feel free to speak now. And with that, do I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes for June 2026?
Commissioner Solomon, I motion to approve the meeting minutes for June 2026.
And with Commissioner John Solomon's motion on the table, does anyone second that motion?
Commissioner Gonzalez, I second the motion.
With Commissioner Gilberto Gonzalez seconding that motion, we now have a motion. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes for June 2026, please say aye.
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 Any discrepancies? Please say nay. And with that being happy, did I hear something? And with that being said, the meeting minutes for June 2026 has now been approved. With our executive director out, I will forward the meeting now to our deputy director, Oversight.
Thank you so much, Chair Bennett. Commissioners, good evening. This is the agency report for the Citizens Police Oversight Commission, July 23rd, 2026. Next slide. The mission of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission is to oversee and investigate the conduct, policies, and practices of the PPD. Currently, CPOC receives complaints of misconduct. We've received commendations to celebrate officers who go above and beyond the call of duty. We provide audits and monitor the internal affairs investigations and police disciplinary processes. We sit on and vote on PBI panels at police discipline hearings, and we conduct oversight of police shootings. We analyze police data, and we develop policy recommendations and reports that we publish for the public. And we engage in outreach and training. Why is civilian oversight necessary? It protects human rights, it promotes constitutional policing, it increases public confidence and trust in the police, and it builds bridges between law enforcement and the public, supports effective policing, and ensures greater accountability and enhances risk management. Before I turn it over to our Director of Administration, Danny Guy, I just want to let folks know that last week, CPOC published and went public with our Mere Encounters inquiry. We had the opportunity, as soon as we announced our project, we got interviewed with NBC 10, as well as would be interviewed by the Citizen, as well as an interview with the Philadelphia Tribune. Articles in both papers are currently available online, as well as the NBC News report that details our project in the interview that was held with our director, Tanya McClary. So we've got a lot of great work afoot. Next month, we'll likely give a much greater update, giving you some ins and outs of the work. But I want the commissioners to know that we will be looking to each of you to take part in the promotion of this project. Thanks goes to Commissioner Solomon for his work with us earlier this past week. We have a video on our social media platforms featuring Commissioner Solomon and our Director McClary talking about the Mere Encounters project and inviting people to participate. You can learn more about the project by going online to phila.gov/free to leave. And with that, I will now turn it over to and also want to thank as well Commissioner Gonzalez, who's invited us to come on his radio program, and we will certainly look forward to doing that. So again, commissioners, we are looking forward to engaging with you and getting your support as we get the word about this important project that looks into the policies and practices of the PPD as it relates to what is called Mere Encounters. More to come on that. With that, Danny, please.
Good evening, folks. I'm going to put in the chat, the June complaint report is now published on our website. One just thing to highlight, this report also includes a complaint that was from May. It was referred later after our report for the May complaints had been published. So we included in this report and just made a note in the slides that there was an additional complaint from May. So just letting folks know for numbers' sake. You can go to the next slide, Carrie. So I'll go through a few summaries of some complaints that we referred during the month of June. First one, the complainant's vehicle and person were frisked and searched by a police officer. The officer did not complete a proper police report following the stop. The officer later lied in a preliminary hearing regarding this case and suppressed evidence. Another complainant was celebrating Pride in the neighborhood where there was a pop sound that sounded as if it could be a gun. This created a stampede in the crowd with people attempting to exit the barricaded area rather than opening the barricades or running towards the sound to investigate and keep the crowd safe. The police continued to barricade the crowd. The complainant questioned multiple officers, repeatedly asking questions like, what happened? What's going on? How do I get out of here? Can you let us out? And there was no response from any officer. One officer was smoking a cigar and blew his smoke in the face of a terrified patron. And I'll just say also, there were, I think, about 7 complaints. Commissioner Solomon, sorry, did you have a question? Oh, no. Just letting folks know that I think CPOC referred about 7 complaints, and you'll see them in our complaint report regarding Pride. As you might have seen, Council Member at Large, Rue Landau, is hosting a hearing about this because there was a lot of issues that came up regarding police, and CPOC is sort of monitoring some of those complaint cases as it refers to this. And I just wanted to highlight that. But Carrie, you can go to the next slide. For the last 3 years, a complainant has had an ongoing issue with a couple who lives near her home and owns an auto shop. The complainant filed a civil lawsuit due to the continued harassment. After court, the neighbor followed the complainant and threatened her with a firearm. The complainant called 911 to file a report and obtain a PFA for this neighbor. The officer who responded took her report and provided her with a report number. However, when she went to go file a PFA using that report number, she was informed that no report had been made. Another complainant's neighbor is a police officer. The complainant witnessed the officer coming in and out of their vehicle with a bottle of liquor and driving recklessly. The complainant has also pulled the officer out from their car while still intoxicated and sometimes pass out. The complainant even heard the officer get into a physical altercation with a former partner. Another complainant was sitting quietly, waiting for a ride share that was about 8 minutes away. Without justification, a security guard called the police. The complainant explained that he was simply waiting for his ride. He was then handcuffed, his pockets were searched, and he was detained by a police vehicle until his ride share finally arrived. Here is some complaint data for demographics for the complaints that we referred in the month of June. This has both the race and ethnicity demographics for the 45 complaints that we referred during the month of June. On this slide, you'll see the year-to-date for these demographics of race and ethnicity. As I mentioned previously, we added another complaint that was referred in May, so this includes all those demographics. And so this is, we're up to 195 complaints that we have referred in the calendar year 2026 to Internal Affairs. And this slide shows the breakdown of gender for the 45 complaints that were referred over in the month of June, as well as the year-to-date for 2026. And I didn't mention this on the previous slides, but just also mentioning that individuals can identify as more than one race or ethnicity, as well as more than one gender. So the numbers might not be exactly even counts. So we just like to make sure to highlight that. But next slide, Carrie. This is our breakdown of the allegations of those 195 complaints that have been referred over to internal affairs. You can see that departmental violations is our top percent, and then lack of service follows that. We'll break down departmental violations on the next slide. And just as we always say, one complaint can have multiple allegations. On this slide, it breaks down those departmental violations, sort of getting a little more specific. So it can be directive violations. Then we see improper stops and detentions, as well as search and seizure. Sort of some of the complaints that I had given some descriptions of. Those are still sort of our highest complaints that we receive. This is a breakdown of zip codes of where the complaint incidents happen. So where those interactions with officers happen. It might be at the complainant's home. More often than not, it's sort of out in the city interacting with them. And this just sort of shows the darker areas are where we've received the most complaints. This does not account for any complaints that were received directly to internal affairs. These are just, again, the complaints that CPOC has received and then referred to internal affairs. And then this is the breakdown of district for all of those complaints. And then this is a breakdown of complaints by month that we've referred. You'll see each line is a different year. Something to note that's really sort of fascinating and kind of shocking is normally you can see going from May to June, typically CPOC sort of receives less complaints as we sort of hit the summer months. But this June, we actually went up. As I mentioned, we referred 45, which is really historically high. And you can see sort of some of the next highest, which was last year, I think was about 25 complaints in the month of June. So that's a huge difference. And even if we sort of take into account the fact that there was this sort of big incident during Pride and there was a lot of misconduct that folks reported from police officers, that really only accounts for, I think, 7 complaints that CPOC received. So we would still be sort of trending up, or at least on par with May. And still much higher than what we've seen in past months. So just highlighting that is a really interesting data point. And we'll be interested to see sort of how things continue and see if complaints go down in July or if they sort of stay on par with what we've seen in May and June for 2026. We can go to the next slide, Carrie. Oh, I guess that's it for me. We can go back.
Thank you,
But
Danny.
commissioners, did you have any questions about the complaints? Carrie, if you can go back on the slides, back to my last one. Oh, you're going forward, I think. If you do the bottom, yeah. There you go.
Hi, this is Commissioner Gonzalez. Just have a couple little things.
Of course.
So one is the 19130 zip code. Is that the Fairmount Spring Garden area? Because I noticed that was a darker kind of color.
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but let me go to Google Maps and see. Hold on. What was the zip code? Carrie, do you want to go back to that slide?
19130. Yeah, nope, go back. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah, that other than the 19134, the next one is the two darkest ones is 19130 and 19140. So would that be the Spring Garden, Francisville area?
I mean, based on the physical location, yeah, I think it's like Northern Liberties area into.
No, not Northern Liberties. Northern Liberties is closer to me. This is like Spring Garden Art Museum. Is that what we're looking at?
I'm just plopping.
Yes, area. That's where the FIFA what is it called? I guess tailgating was at.
Not sure. Well, I just want you guys to take note of that because I think I always bring attention to that 19130. Just, for consistency on my part, I always bring attention to that. Is that also considered, that's the super district that the police made the 9th district? Is that included in that?
Could I?
No, it's not.
Danny, if you don't mind, can I just interject for 1 second?
Of
Commissioner
course.
Gonzalez, are you talking about the darker red portion?
19130. Yeah, it's a darker, it's like the second darkest section.
19130, I think, is over in another part, at least based on Google Maps of the city.
It's not Spring Garden or Francisville?
Well, I think what you're talking about, that dark red is, but I don't think that's zip code 19130.
Well,
But
well, the sheet I'm looking at right now,
hold
it's
on.
19130.
Sorry, I just can't see it as well on the slide, so I'm just bringing it up in front of myself on my computer.
Right. And I think that's what the confusion is. So Commissioner Gonzalez, you're
That's
talking about the darker,
19134.
right. You're talking about the darker orange, not the darkest red, correct?
Correct. I'm talking about
Okay.
the, like, it's
Okay.
the second darkest, I think, like the
So yeah,
second.
so when you said darkest, it took attention to the darkest red, which is
Yeah.
19134, where I think the confusion. So 19130 is the section of the city that you are referencing. It's
Thank you.
just clarity around when you said dark, it took everyone's attention if I'm
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
problem.
thank you. Yeah,
Thank you,
Chief.
Vice Chair.
Yes. All right, awesome. So again, just my typical thing, I always bring attention to that. Is that also, just for clarification, is that also the 9th District Police District? That was combined?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and then my last question is, in your chart, you had trans male and trans female. I'm just curious, because I don't know a lot. Why are we assigning gender to trans folks?
Someone who is trans male is usually someone who is born female at birth and transitions to male, versus someone who is trans female is someone who's born male at birth and transitions to female. So those are two separate genders for an identification. If someone like myself is non-binary, they typically, and they don't identify with any gender, then you'd identify either as non-binary, gender non-conforming, gender fluid. I think on our slides, we specifically just have, in our demographics, we're looking at people, usually it's just listed as non-binary third gender, but someone who is trans identifies as trans female, that's sort of their explicit gender experience. Does that make sense, Commissioner?
Yeah. I just like, again, I'm learning, so I don't know.
Yeah, no,
Usually,
it's a great
yeah,
question. Totally reasonable question. But yeah, so like anyone, trans identification is sort of like a big umbrella term. Technically, I fit under that umbrella as someone who's non-binary. Like that is someone, like that is technically, I'm considered trans under the major umbrella. But then there's all these categories, and most individuals sort of either identify as sort of a gender fluid in between. All genders don't identify as a specific gender. That is still considered trans. Versus trans female is someone who's explicitly was born male and then transitioned to female, and they identify as female, but that is the gender is considered trans female. So that's sort of the gender identification, and vice versa for someone who's trans male.
got you. Thank you so much for that. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
of
done.
course.
For the record. Hello?
Yep.
For the record, 19130 is from Girard Avenue to the Franklin Institute, from the river to 13th Street.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
And yes, the 9th District does fall in there. A little Google search.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that I always kind of harp in on that. I grew up in that neighborhood, and I just always feel, that the numbers are always high there, and I just hope that we continue to document those numbers. Thank you.
And thank you for your question, Commissioner. And certainly we will continue to document all the numbers, including the areas that you're referencing. Any other questions for Danny?
If nobody else has a question.
Okay. With that, I'll turn it over to Janine Zajac, our Director of Auditing Policy
Can I be heard?
and Research.
Sorry, Commissioner Bennett, did you have another question for Danny?
I did have another question.
Sure, what is it?
Does the forms, when it comes to gender, is it voluntary?
Yep, all demographic information is reported by complainants. So they either are filling our complaint form out online via either our online portal or through the PDF. And so they select what other gender that they identify with and race or ethnicity. Or if they call us over the phone, our staff asks them, what do you identify with? They're also allowed to say they prefer not to answer. And some might even ask questions sort of similar to Commissioner Gilberto, where they ask, like, does this exist on your form or whatever? And we help them categorize whatever they feel best fits their gender and race and ethnicity identity.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. I just
Of
want
course. All right. I think over to you, Janine.
Right. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I will be reporting this evening on audits that our team completed during the month of June. I will give a somewhat shortened presentation of the auditing data so that I can have some time for our senior analyst, Michael Dooley, to present the findings of our body-worn camera audit of the 22nd District, which was released about 2-ish weeks ago, since our last opportunity to report to you all. So I wanted to make sure he shared the findings with you all. So as always, I just like to talk a little bit about our auditing process. Our team receives completed investigations from the Internal Affairs Division, investigations they've completed into complaints against police made by members of the public. And we review all of the case file materials that are provided to us, including the final report of investigation. And we have 11 business days from the date that we received the file to complete our review and also notify the department if we are going to be providing any feedback or recommendations about the investigation. So we will send specific recommendations if necessary for these investigations in order to increase the thoroughness or the completeness or accuracy of the case. An example would be, we would recommend that the investigator interview all of the officers who were present for the encounter or provide an explanation in the report as to why they chose not to interview those officers. And this process allows civilian oversight staff to review these investigations while they are still technically open and allows us to give feedback about any improvements we think need to be made and make those recommendations before the top of the chain of command reviews these cases. So we use the same series of questions to assess each case so that our reviews are consistent over time and across different case types. Next slide, Carrie. So why does this data matter? Our monthly data adds up and allows us to make recommendations to the department about how to improve their processes for these investigations and, most importantly, increase consistency and fairness in investigations that they are doing. And we're able to have direct impact on outcomes of cases. So these reports that I give each month are intended to show some of the impact that we have. And we're always looking for trends and themes across data and across cases so that we can generate project work for the office or advocacy in other ways. So again, our slides tonight are going to cover some high-level takeaways from audits that we completed in the month of June of 2026. In that month, we received 26 cases from Internal Affairs, and we reviewed 21 of those cases. So that's 81% of cases that we did receive, we were able to complete reviews for. And all of the cases that we reviewed and received were full investigations, meaning there were no shortened divisional cases. And reviewing divisional cases allows us to have more impact on more serious allegations of misconduct. Slide, please. So this graphic is just showing the percentage of cases that we received that we're able to audit. And this is going all the way back to the start of this live auditing process, showing how many we're able to accomplish. So we try as best as we can to audit 80% of the cases that we receive, but our ability to do this can fluctuate based on how many cases we're receiving at any given time, staff capacity, other events that we're helping with, other projects we're working on. But last month we were able to do 81% of the cases, so that was great. Next slide, please. So we're always looking at the timeline for these investigations. Of the cases we looked at, roughly half of them were completed within 90 business days. This calculation is done based on the official open date of the investigation and then the date that the Chief Inspector at Internal Affairs signs off on it. So the Chief Inspector at Internal Affairs is the last stop in the review process before we receive it at CPOC. But as I said before, when we receive these cases and review them, the case is still technically open and can still be sent back for more work by us or by anyone else further up in the chain of command. So when we are capturing this metric, it really isn't the end of the investigation by any means. It could come back for more work, and the life of the case continues on until it gets fully settled, perhaps in the discipline process if misconduct was found. So we will be updating our reporting on this metric in the future. We have heard some concerns from the community about this 90-day timeline. This stems from the fact that the executive order and the official policies in place do give a 90-day timeline for investigations, and the police department has interpreted this to mean 90 business days. So we have been going with the 90 business day guideline, but technically the policy does say 90 days. Just being able to report on 90 days and what that looks like, we're going to start doing that in the future. We had to tweak some of our data collection in order to really be able to do that. So you might see a small change to how we're reporting this metric in the future. The department itself is really working on their interpretation of 90 days, if this 90 business day interpretation is appropriate, or if they will continue to use it. So that is something that is still kind of being worked on their end. Of course, they are the ones who interpret these policies and follow these policies and create these policies. We are reporting on them. So this is something that's continuing to develop as time goes on. We'll of course, report on any changes to this or what happens with this. But we did have a good conversation with the police leadership involved in this policy making, and had a productive conversation about how they're trying to handle this and work it out. So that is the update for now. So it may change how we report on this in the future. Next slide, please. So we're always, of course, reviewing the full investigation file, reviewing the report, reviewing the findings to determine if the conclusions that the investigator came to actually make sense based on the evidence that they presented and the analysis that they did. So this past month, we found that about 62% of the cases had findings that all made sense and all looked good to us. When the findings do not match, we always make a recommendation that the findings should be updated to match the evidence and the analysis. So this is somewhat low. So we always wanted to see this green percentage be a little bit higher than this. Next slide, please. We're always looking to make sure that the investigation is complete and captured all of the allegations that were made by the complainant who made the complaint, and of course any other violations that are present in the case that were sort of uncovered in the course of the investigation. So in June, we found a quarter of the cases that we reviewed had missing allegations or violations present, and it totaled 8 individual missing allegations or violations. So last month, roughly half of the cases we reviewed had missing allegations or violations. So this is a good improvement, showing that they're catching more of these things in these investigations. And as with last month, body-worn camera violations that we found were rare this month. We only found 1 additional instance of a body-worn camera violation that wasn't addressed in the investigation. This is really a good thing to see. Typically, in the past, that has been something very common that the investigators were not including in their cases, and they are starting to do that much more frequently now. So that's good to see. Next slide, please. So when it comes to feedback that we actually provided to the department with these cases, again, we reviewed 21 full cases. We ended up sending feedback memos for 12 of them, or slightly more than half of the cases. This is a slight decrease over time. In May, the last month that we reported on, it was an all-time low for cases that we had feedback and recommendations for. We have had some good conversations with the department lately about the recommendations we send and how to increase adherence to their policies related to investigations. So, we've built this good relationship with them and had productive conversations about, we're making some of the same recommendations over and over again, and that isn't lost on some of the leadership. So just continuing those conversations and trying to increase all their compliance with these metrics. Next slide, please. So as far as the recommendations that we did make for cases in June, the most common tip that we made had to do with matching the analysis and the findings to the evidence. That matches with that metric I talked about earlier, where the findings weren't really making sense based on the evidence or analysis they presented. So that was a very common recommendation that we made in June. We also made one diversion related recommendation. Again, diversion is a non-discipline outcome for officers who have committed low-level violations. And we review those cases and sometimes recommend an officer should get disciplined instead of diversion. So we made one recommendation like that this month, and I'll talk about that more in depth as an example in the following slides. So one example of a case here, I'll just read through this to show some of the specific work we've done in the month of June on these cases. So in one case, a complainant alleged that they witnessed an unknown protester being physically abused by officers. While the body-worn camera did not capture the interaction between the alleged victim and the two officers identified in the complaint, it did capture an additional third officer striking a protester in the head with his forearm. During this interaction, the protester was surrounded by officers who had her hands secured behind her back, though it was unclear if she was actually handcuffed at that point. In the third officer's interview, who did the striking, he acknowledged that he struck a protester with his forearm after the protester assaulted him. This officer did not complete a use of force report. This use of force and lack of a report were not addressed on the conclusions page. So a big goal of ours, of course, is always to ensure all allegations and potential violations are consistently addressed in these investigations. So we made a recommendation that the investigator should address whether this use of force, which was acknowledged by the officer, and the lack of a force report were consistent with departmental policy. Next slide, please. A second example here, a woman was a victim of sexual assault by a known assailant, and she reported the crime to police. A warrant was approved quickly by the court. The investigation showed there were no documented attempts by the assigned detective to serve the warrant for the assailant over a 14-month period, and the assailant was then arrested after incidental police contact, meaning he just happened to encounter officers. Maybe he was stopped and had a warrant, so he was arrested. The complainant was later notified by an assistant district attorney that the charges against the assailant were dropped due to a Rule 600 violation, which relates to speedy warrant service and a speedy trial. In her interview, the complainant expressed a great impact to her life over this outcome. She had followed all the steps she needed to in order to get justice, and yet her assailant had his charges dropped through no fault of her own. So the investigation showed that the misconduct occurred, with the outcome being diversion and retraining because the detective and the infraction itself were eligible for the diversion program under the diversion policy. So next slide, please. Diversion, again, is intended to address misconduct that is, quote, minor in nature. That's from their policy. And the relevant policy notes that the totality of the circumstances will be considered with all diversion eligible infractions. So a goal with our reviews when it comes to these diversion cases is to ensure that the totality of the circumstances and especially the impact on the complainant are duly considered when decisions about diversion are being made. And so we made a recommendation that the detective should receive a sustained finding and discipline due to the severity of the violation and the impact on the complainant. I think that our perspective as civilians is really valuable in situations like this because we can really see from the point of view of these individuals who take the time to file a complaint and try to seek justice when they are wronged. And just speaking to that in these types of cases and making these recommendations is definitely a place where I see civilian oversight perspective being really an important piece of the decisions and the puzzle here. Next slide, please. And we haven't heard back on these recommendations yet, so I don't know what the outcome is on these. So I'm not able to say on those yet. So these next slides relate to the body-worn camera audit of the 22nd district that we released a couple of weeks ago. So I will pass this over to our senior analyst, Michael Tooley, and he can tell you all about the great work that he did and the outcomes of this audit.
Great. Thanks, Janine. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, commissioners. It's good to see you all again. I hope everybody's been doing well. Before I kind of jump into some of our findings, I just want to take a second just to kind of give some refresher information about the project, maybe give some additional information to some people who don't know about the project. So basically, we wanted to try to analyze how the department is using their body-worn cameras and basically if they were using them in a way that's consistent with their policies and procedures. So we developed this audit project. A little bit about how we get our data is that we basically will make a request to the department for large portions of their data from a specific district in a particular month. We then take a sample of that big data and we just draw like a really small sample. We'll make another request for any videos that are associated with that sample, and then we'll also collect those reports. So basically, that's how we get the information to make these determinations. So the chart that you all are looking at here shows our 6 major compliance metrics. So first we have our incident compliance. This is a measurement of if this is an incident that should be recorded, was it recorded? Our officer compliance is the total percentage of officers that we observe in the sample that record. Activation by all officers present. This is a metric that that measures the total percentage of incidents that are recorded by each officer that's actually physically there. Incident captured in its entirety is self-explanatory. We want to see the entire incident. We have activation from standby mode, just making sure that officers have their cameras on and that they're ready to record in the moments prior to them recording. And then correct categorization deals with the way that these incidents are categorized once they are uploaded to the digital media evidence unit. So the first chart that you all are looking at, those are actually out of order, so just kind of bear with me for a minute. The first chart that we are looking at is the percentage of officers that recorded body-worn camera footage. What you need to know is that for this sample, our auditors reviewed 33 body-worn camera videos. Of those 33 videos, we observed 52 total officers, and of those 52 officers, 34 recorded a video, and that brought this compliance metric to 65%. Our next 2 graphs that we're looking at here, the one on the left, we want to make sure that these body-worn cameras are activated by all available officers on scene. I've mentioned it before, but this is helpful for determining like officers' actions. Sometimes the perspective of the most involved officer might not capture everything that we are looking for. So it's always helpful when every officer on scene is recording. So we found that in 19 of the 33 videos, each officer actually recorded, and that brought that to 58%. And then the chart on the right that you all are looking at, we are looking at whether or not the body-worn camera captured the entire incident. And we found that in 30 of 33, or 91% of these videos, the entire incident was captured. So that's a good thing, obviously. Great. Our next 2 charts that we're looking at here, we want to make sure that the body-worn camera is activated from standby mode. Again, this is something that the department requires. So basically, they want to be able to see a certain amount of time prior to the officer recording. And basically, if an officer doesn't have their camera in standby mode, then it doesn't capture those moments prior to activating their camera. And this is really important in situations where things might escalate quickly, and different people might want to view what happens in the moments prior to recording. So it is something that we think is really important. As you can see, in 29 of the 33 videos, the officer correctly activated their camera from standby mode. And then lastly, this chart shows that 32 of the 33 videos that we saw were correctly categorized, and that helps with just making sure that the videos are retained as they should be in their digital media evidence database. And I saved this for last. This is the most important metric that we're actually measuring. We just want to make sure that each incident that should be recorded is recorded, and just some of the numbers that we did. So for this particular district, this is the 22nd district. So this covers Brewerytown, different parts of Strawberry Mansion, and then Temple University. So we actually did a request for April's data of 2025. We did not receive a lot of body-worn camera videos, and we just wanted to make sure that this wasn't an aberration or like a one-off. So we actually did a second month. So we reviewed twice as many incidents as we normally do. So as you can see, we reviewed 125 total incidents. We found that 42 of these incidents did not require the officer to record, and that 83 did require recording. And they, as in the department, they gave us access to 23 videos. So basically, we determined that there were 60 missing body-worn camera videos within these 2 months within our sample. And then the next slide that we're looking at here, this is just a little bit more of a thorough breakdown of those incidents that were missing. So as you can all see, investigative premise, this accounted for 35% of the total missing incidents. These incidents included the investigation of premises, officers being dispatched to a person with a weapon. We have investigation of a person screaming, calls for audio accidents and different things like that. So the next major category we had is vehicle stops and safety checks that accounted for 28% of the total missing incidents. We had vehicle services, meat complaints, and then other, there weren't as many, but the incidents that we saw were basically officers transporting people or complaints to local hospitals, and then an officer responding to a call for a stray or wandering dog. So these are all things that we thought and stand by that should have been recorded based off of the directive. And then I did include just a brief little portion of their directive, and I'll just read that for anyone who's not familiar. It says, officers shall place and maintain their body-worn cameras in standby mode immediately after receiving them. At the beginning of their tour, body-worn cameras will be activated prior to responding to all calls for service, during all law enforcement related encounters, and during all activities involving the general public. So as you all can see, this covers a wide range of different incidents that officers can be responding to. So we definitely just want to make sure that officers are maintaining compliance with this very important directive. And then just a few additional data points that we are looking for. We are trying to check and make sure that there's no major issues with the titling, the naming, or the labeling. We found that only 3 of these videos had one such of those issues, so that's about 9%. We basically found that 82% of these videos were recorded within the departmental guidelines, and for that, we just want to make sure that the video is activated from standby mode, that it captures the entire recording, and that there's no instances of prohibited activity. We also found that 3 of these videos were not captured in their entirety. So there was one video that began early, and there was 2, that began late, and there was 2 videos that ended early. A part of their directive does state that if an officer ends their video early, they should state out loud why, and in neither of those incidents, the officer actually did state the reason for deactivation. Our last little metric that we have here is that we didn't see any instances of prohibited activity in the sample, and we haven't thus far, and that's a good thing that we like to report on. And then this slide here just kind of details some of the action steps. So Janine and I met, and we thought that these would be some helpful steps that the district could take. So our first action step was just for the leadership team to facilitate some type of district-wide training and education for the officers, just to make sure that they have a clear understanding of when they should be activating their cameras and when they shouldn't be. Our second action step, we just wanted the leadership of the 22nd district to use their time during roll call meetings, which is the meetings that they have prior to their tours or their shifts. We wanted them to use that to remind officers that they should also be activating their cameras when they provide backup to other officers. And then our third action step is very similar. Again, it's just using that time before they go out, before officers are on patrol, just to make sure that their cameras are in standby mode. And we also just put in a note that supervisors that are in the field, whether it be to respond to a complaint or just check up on officers, they should also be making sure that their officers have their cameras in standby mode. That is my last slide. Sorry, before you jump in, just for the commissioners, I do kind of just want to give you a little bit of an update with this project. So last week, I was able to attend a public service or a public safety forum hosted by Councilmember Young, and that was actually in the 22nd district. One of the things that Captain Sproul had talked about was some of the changes that he made to the internal policies following this meeting. So he's kind of, I guess, revised some of the procedures and how the supervisors will be checking body-worn cameras moving forward. So that's always a good thing to hear. I think Captain Sproul is taking some really good steps just to make sure that officers in the 22nd district are maintaining compliance with the directive. So that's also, something that we kind of strive for when we're having these meetings. We obviously want them to be effective and useful for the officers. So That's just like a little something that I wanted to mention and just make sure that you all were aware of. So, yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Commissioners, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Toole? Commissioner Gilberto Gonzalez says, thank you for your presentation. Does any other commissioners have any questions or comments for Mr. Tooley before I ask mine? Good. Question. The digital data network, is that um, accessible by the community?
It's it's not accessible by the community. That's where they upload all of their videos. So that's something that the department has access to. We also have access to it, but it's not a community database. Yeah, it's internal to the department, and I guess us, and maybe some other, law enforcement related personnel within the city.
Um, that's all the questions. I appreciate it. I also have a comment. Um, Officer Captain Stout, is that his name, right? Captain Stout.
Captain Sproul.
Well, Captain Sproul's ability to actually listen to the Citizens Police Oversight Commission and the reports that the auditing team has made, and made adjustments to his training, and the way he trains and analyzes his own data is something honorable, I should say. I just wanted to say thank you to him. If you see him personally, tell him I said thank you, because I think that's what this agency is about. This agency is about not only overseeing the police, but actually working with them to make changes that improve public safety throughout the city of Philadelphia. So I just wanted to say that. So thank you. And thank you to the auditing team as well. Deputy,
Yes, sir.
do you have any other comments or questions at the moment?
Not at all. With permission, we will move forward into the next section of our staff meeting. So at this time, we will have what I'm calling our deputy's desk for this month. We use the deputy's desk as an opportunity to do a deep dive into various aspects of the law and or concerns regarding how the law impacts the people with respect to civilian oversight of the police, as well as looking at the law's history regarding various policies and practices. Last month, we looked at issues really, well, actually the month prior, because I was away last month, we looked at the replaced Act 111, Pennsylvania statute that provides for grievance arbitration and amongst the police and the firefighters. We placed that act within its historic context and looked at how police unions were able to, over time, achieve that law being passed in the state, as well as other states across the country. Next slide, please. We are now going to do a deep dive into this issue of search and seizure, and this is purposeful. We're looking to help commissioners as well as our audience appreciate our project that we're currently pursuing, this Mere Encounters project. And, the thing about the law is that it shifts and changes over time, particularly not just the law itself, but how the law is interpreted and applied. And so, I thought this was a great opportunity to do a deep dive into this aspect of the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. So I'm calling this section Search and Seizure, Civil Rights and Police Powers. And what you'll find as we go into this is this tension that exists with the way the laws have been interpreted. On the one hand, concern for protection of the police as they go about their work, at the same time trying to be mindful of civil freedoms and civil rights. Next slide, please. The first part of this series is going to look at the particular question of Black freedom, citizenship, and equal protection. So the question becomes why the question of Black freedom as it relates to search and seizure? Well, next slide. Has to do with the fact that when the Fourth Amendment, which contains the search and seizure clause, was ratified, so all the way back to the founding of this nation in 1791, and it was a part of the first 10 amendments called the Bill of Rights. And what you should know about these amendments is that essentially it's the founders' effort at addressing what they did not address in the Constitution itself. The Constitution kind of lays out the various forms of government and what their powers are. With the amendment, with the Bill of Rights in particular, the question was, well, how do we afford and assure the rights of the people with respect to the government? And the Fourth Amendment addresses this question of search and seizure. It reads, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by an oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons and things to be seized. Next slide, please. The question of the evening is, can a Black person be protected against unreasonable search and seizure? At the time of the ratification, please go back. I'm sorry, Carrie. At the time of the ratification of the Fourth Amendment, this was a crucial question. Why? Namely, because in the Constitution itself was what was called the Fugitive Slave Clause. And that clause provided that any person to whom service was due to another person who attempts to escape from that service, persons are authorized to capture that individual and return that person to whom their service was due. Now, the framers of the Constitution were very conscious, historically speaking, to not be as explicit with respect to the identity of the individuals and communities they were referring to. But of course, historically, we know they were referring to the people at that time who were called Black. And so the question becomes, can Black people in 1791 into the 1800s be protected against unreasonable search and seizure? And this is critical to our understanding of how the law is applied today. And this series will help us come to some appreciation for that. The case of Prigg versus Pennsylvania in 1842 really clarifies this question. Next slide, please. Because of course, what we must appreciate is that even in 1791, not all Black folks in this country, as it was then founded, were in fact enslaved. You had people like Garrett Morgan. You had people like Benjamin Banneker. You had people like Richard Allen, Absalom Jones, etc. Persons who were free, primarily living here in Philadelphia and parts north. And so not only is this important with respect to this country, this is important with respect to our city and to the work of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission, because our work principally is guided by a concern for how the laws and policies relative to the Philadelphia Police Department impact the people. The case of Margaret Morgan is instructive here. In 1837, Edward Prigg and his posse captures Margaret Morgan and her children in Pennsylvania. Prigg claimed that Morgan was a fugitive slave. Pennsylvania at the time was a free state. The Federal Fugitive Slave Act of 1793 authorized the owner of an enslaved fugitive to seize the person and bring them before a federal judge or state magistrate to obtain a certificate after proving that the person was actually enslaved. Prigg, the kidnapper, did not prove that Miss Morgan was enslaved before any federal judge or state magistrate in Pennsylvania. Instead, Prigg forcibly removed Morgan and her children, one of whom was born in Pennsylvania, free, to Maryland, where a county judge adjudged them to be enslaved. Prigg was charged and convicted. Prigg, again, the kidnapper, was charged and convicted under a Pennsylvania law designed to prevent this very kind of activity. The uncertified kidnapping of persons who are being claimed as enslaved fugitives. Prigg challenged this law as unconstitutional. Next slide, please. In the case that would be heard by the Supreme Court at that time, again, Prigg versus Pennsylvania, the counsel for the state of Pennsylvania says this in his argument: the same power that can upon simple allegations seize or carry off a slave can, on the allegation of service due, seize and carry off a free man. There is no power to dispute the question with the seizing party. In non-slaveholding states, such as Pennsylvania, the presumption is that every man is a free man until the contrary be proved. It is like every other legal presumption in favor of the right. Every man is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. Every defendant against whom an action of debt is brought is presumed not to owe until the debt is proved. Now, in a slaveholding state, color always raises a presumption of slavery. If then, under this most monstrous assumption of power, a freedom may be seized, where is our boasted freedom? Next slide. Attorney Hambly goes on to say, what says the fourth article of the amendments to the Constitution of the United States? But that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. Article 5, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. But here we are met with the remark that slaves are no parties in the Constitution, that we the people does not embrace them. This is admitted, but we are not arguing the want of power to claim and take a slave, but to claim and take a free man. Next slide, please. So therein lies the analysis, right? That herein, at this time period, a Black person's entitlement to constitutional protection was conditioned upon their legal status. Question of whether they are enslaved or free. Yet the institution of slavery, under which only those classified as Black could be enslaved, rendered the law a contradiction unto itself. Although the law required that a Black person be brought before a judge to determine whether they were legally enslaved, the Constitution presumed Blackness as a badge of enslavement. In practice, this constitutional presumption meant that all Black people, regardless of their status, lived under the constant threat of enslavement, torture, and death. This case in particular was only reflective of the controversy that was occurring across the country and the tensions therein. The country attempted to resolve this in the Missouri Compromise. This map here shows the dilemma. You had almost equal portions of free states and slave states. And this is all about Congress. This is all about powers politically and guiding the direction of the country, whether it would become a free country or whether it would remain a country that supported slavery. The state of Maine, the compromise, essentially part of it anyway, was that Maine would be included into the states as a free state, whereas Missouri would be included as a slave state, hoping that this would hold the tension. Next slide, please. Tucked within the Missouri Compromise was an update to the Fugitive Slave Act. This update states in 1850, the law would then read, and be it enacted, that when a person held to service or labor in any state or territory in the U.S. has heretofore or shall heretofore escape into state or territory of the United States, to persons to whom such labor or such service or labor is due may pursue and reclaim such fugitive, either by procuring a warrant or by seizing and arresting such fugitive and by taking such person before such court, whose duty it shall be to hear and determine the case of such claimant. Now, here's what you need to know. Next slide. There are three things that stand out about this particular law in 1850. The first is that the law denied that Black people could not bear witness to their status before the court. The law reads, in no trial or hearing under this act shall the testimony of such alleged fugitive be admitted into evidence. What I want you to note is the word alleged. That even the framers of the law understood and recognized that it's not certain that any Black person that is brought before the court by someone claiming that this individual is indeed enslaved is in fact enslaved. They are alleged. Yet the court would not provide for that person to give testimony to their status as law. Furthermore, the law bribes the magistrate. The law literally provides that administrative judges, persons who would then determine the status of the individual, were paid double the price if they ruled that the person was a fugitive slave, as opposed to whether they ruled that they were indeed free. In this case, the law said, we will give you $10 if you find that the person is in fact a slave. We will only give you $5 if you determine that they are free. Finally, the law forced compliance among white folks. U.S. Marshals could deputize white citizens to assist and capture Black people. Any white person who refused or who supported Black people in their escape from capture faced up to 6 months in prison and a $1,000 fine. Next slide. During this period, we would learn of, well, I should say it like this, the story of African Americans living in this period is best captured in the story of Solomon Northup in his autobiography called 12 Years a Slave. It has been made into a film. And if you have not seen it, I think it's worthy of your indulgence. Solomon Northup is a Black father, husband, violinist, farmer, born free in New York. In 1841, he is conned and drugged by 2 white men, kidnapped to D.C., where he is sold into slavery in New Orleans. There he was traded among various slave owners before securing his freedom in 1853. Next slide, please. This here is a broadside that was published, as you see at the bottom there in left corner, on April 24, 1851. Literally the year following the passage of the Missouri Compromise and the Fugitive Slave Act of that year. This broadside captures the dilemma facing Black people. It says, caution, colored people of Boston, one and all. You are hereby respectfully cautioned and advised to avoid conversing with the watchmen and police officers of Boston. For since the recent order of the mayor and aldermen, they are empowered to act as kidnappers and slave catchers, They have already been actually employed in kidnapping, catching, and keeping slaves. Therefore, if you value your liberty and the welfare of the fugitives among you, shun them in every possible manner, as so many hounds on the track of the most unfortunate of your race. Keep a sharp lookout for kidnappers and have top eye open. Next slide, please. The following year would see a different kind of response in the face of this state-sanctioned kidnapping of Black folks. Also here in the state of Pennsylvania, in 1851, September 11, in Christiana, Pennsylvania, just 20 miles north of the then Mason-Dixon line, the border of Maryland, a community of armed Black men and women successfully defended against 4 people who were being snatched, attempted traffickers coming in to this community to capture by a man by the name of Edward Gorish, who had come from Maryland with a warrant under the Fugitive Slave Act. The armed resistance of this Black community in alliance with white abolitionists prevented the 4 formerly enslaved people from being captured. They immediately escaped to Canada following this fight, but injuries were sustained on both sides, and Gorish later died of his wounds. Officials quickly arrested and charged anyone with possible connections to the riot. In defense of those charged became popular amongst the abolitionist movement. The accused were successfully defended by abolitionist Congressman Thaddeus Stevens. Next slide, please. The following year from that rebellion, which historians say actually is the first unofficial battle of the Civil War, literally a decade prior to the official beginning of that conflict. Following year from the Christiana Rebellion, the great abolitionist himself, Frederick Douglass, would take the stage in the Corinthian Hall in Rochester, New York, invited there by the Rochester Ladies Anti-Slavery Society in celebration of their 4th commemoration of the July 4th celebration. Just go back one more time, Carrie, thanks. Douglass said to them, "I'll come, but I'm not coming on July 4th. Come the day following." So he gave this speech, this famous speech, "What to you, the slave, is your 4th of July?" Next slide, please, Carrie. Thanks. He begins, "Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I or those I represent to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? I say it with a sad sense of the disparity between us. I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you, this day, rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not me. The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice. I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems were inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today? Before you go to the next slide, I just want to focus in and appreciate what Douglass is doing here. For those that may not know, Douglass is himself an enslaved man who escaped slavery. He had been living at this point for approximately 15 or 20 years away from the plantation, away from bondage, and had dedicated his life to the cause of abolition of slavery. His usage of language here is noted. When he says there at the end, do you mean citizens? Right? He's talking about the white community who invited him, who themselves are abolitionists. Okay? Right? Douglass not often, but lived the entirety of his life until the Civil War, until the 13th Amendment passed, as a fugitive. Appreciate that. Yet going around speaking, publishing, writing, traveling with a target on his back, yet and still doing this important work. So by him referencing citizens and speaking to an audience that was likely a multiracial crowd, it is understood that he's pointing out the hypocrisy that he is illuminating in his speech with respect to the rights and liberties that the 4th of July represents at that time. Next slide, please. He goes on to say, what to the slave, to the American slave, is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty an unholy license. Your national greatness swelling vanity. Your shouts of liberty and equality hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings with all your religious parade and solemnity are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up crimes that would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. When we talk about search and seizure, we are talking about the amendment that casts forward a light upon which all laws relative to police powers and the powers of the people in confrontation with the police, who are themselves representatives of the state, are codified. As you will see and learn with me as we go through this series, the rights of the people versus the powers of the police have shifted and waned as a consequence of the social conditions under which this country has lived. This moment truly echoes the resounding virtue of what liberty actually has meant in our country. Certainly, it wasn't planned that I would provide this series in this month, but nonetheless, here we are, the 250th anniversary of this nation, just earlier this month, celebrating the 4th of July. I think that given the conditions under which we currently live, it is beneficial for us to remind ourselves of this historic journey, not just with respect to law and order, but also with respect to liberty and freedom. Next slide, please. Next month, we will pick this up and we will address the case that settled the question of Black people and constitutional protection. We will look into the origins of the 14th Amendment and how the 14th Amendment settles the questions posed in this session regarding the 4th Amendment. And of course, we will look at how the 14th Amendment impacted and impacts policing to this day. With that, I open the floor for commissioners and return the session back to Chair Bennett. Thank you.
Hi, this is Commissioner Gonzalez. Can I comment?
Hello, Commissioner.
Well, okay, if I can comment, I just want to say really thank you for that presentation. I think it's when you bring it down to today, right, where we are today, you realize that the issues that are in and let me just say it, I don't want to say black and brown, but I'll just say the black community, because that's I grew up in Fairmount, in Poplar Street. You know, I grew up with my brothers, and the problem, the systemic issue that you just presented, that it is systemic. It's not just today, it is in the system. And I really appreciate that you brought that to the light here. And I want to thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Chair Bennett, I return the session to you. Thank you. Hello.
Thank you, Deputy. Yep, this is Vice Chair Rockmine. I will be taking over for Chair Bennett. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so very much for that presentation. We truly, truly appreciate your depth and wealth of knowledge that you share with us and the manner in which you ensure that we are an informed commission as well as an informed community. So again, thank you for that. Just a matter of clarification. I'm sure you've asked this already, but I'll just ask again. Do any commissioners have any questions for our deputy after the deputy's desk presentation on tonight?
Commissioner Solomon, I just want to say the deputy's desk was amazing. Love the information and the insights. And I look forward to the next time.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir, Chair.
I want to say thank you for that in-depth presentation. Um, the the Boston piece was hit me specifically, especially, I'm a sports buff, so especially seeing the exit of Jaylen Brown from the Boston Celtics and the history. We all know the history of Boston. So that part definitely hit me, and it teased me to want to know more about the origins of this city, as far as the housing disparities in the city of Philadelphia. I think each state had their racial laws that oppressed minorities, and it just made me want to look into more about the city of Philadelphia, and not only with the Fourth Amendment and search and seizures, but other aspects. So I want to thank you. I'm always intrigued about the deputy's desk. I stepped away from the meeting, but I still kept the volume on. So I just want to I want to say I appreciate you, and I'll wait the next one.
Thank you, Chair. And just a quick response to what you shared. Absolutely, Philadelphia and Boston were an amazing, thriving, politically active Black community. If you want to do a little more research into Black activism in Boston, I would definitely recommend looking into the person of David Walker, free Black man who is devoted to this work of abolition against slavery, even prior to Frederick Douglass. So, a lot of great history. Black folks have been doing the things for quite some time. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners?
Yes, Michelle, to echo the sentiments that everyone else. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
You're muted currently, Commissioner Enix.
Okay, how about now? Can you hear me?
Now you're good. Yep, we can hear you perfectly.
Thank you. I want to echo the sentiments of everyone, just kind of piggyback. And I just cannot say enough about the deputy's desk. Every time I hear you articulate the points that you are bringing to clarity, it feels like a master class. And I just thank you for being a part of the circumference that's just within our reach. Don't have to go out and buy this. Don't have to go out and research it. It's right within our reach. And I thank you for bringing so much value to us in that way. You have no idea. One of my mentors made me read or watch 12 Years a Slave. So I'm looking at this and I'm putting it together in ways that I've never seen it before. But just thank you. Thank you for not considering it robbery to share so much richness with us. Thank you.
More than welcome. Thank you.
All right. Chair, do you need me to close us out? You are still on mute, sir.
I think it would be best for you to close this out.
Okay. We're going to open up for public comment first. And then I just want to make sure that we are all right. All righty. Well, the chair has spoken. So we will open up the floor for his favorite part, our public comment. We welcome public comments and feedback at this time. If you would wish to speak, please let us know now by raising your hand or sending a request in the chat with your full name. You may also submit written public comment through the chat, which will be read aloud. Each commenter will be unmuted and given 3 minutes to speak. We ask that you would please state your name and address your comments to me, the vice chair. We ask that you refrain from any and all offensive language, threats, or harassment, or you will be removed from the meeting. While we appreciate your input, commissioners and staff may not be able to respond to your questions or comments immediately. Every attempt, however, will be made to follow up with you by phone or email after the meeting. You can also contact us directly by email at cpoc@phila.gov. That is CPOC at phila.gov, or call us via phone at 215-685-0891. And I'm sorry, Carrie, do we have anyone with public comment on this evening? Or is that Danny now?
Carrie can still answer the question, but I'll just throw out, there was a question in the chat. The reason I unmuted myself is because I think I can answer it. We had a question earlier, I think it was during my presentation. It said, how is CPOC responding to the increased number of complaints? If that individual wants to follow up with any questions, but I'll just answer and say, the truth is we are handling it like we handle any month of complaints, whether it's lower or as high as we're at with 45. In June, we're trying to refer them all within our standard practice of 5 business days, getting them to internal affairs by that 5-day deadline, if not sooner. And we are really trying to take every complaint we get very seriously, thorough, and taking care for every single complaint that we receive. Just because we've gotten a lot doesn't mean we're not going to do that. We're also lucky because we are at sort of an all-time high of our staff right now. And we had a new staff member start at the end of June. And so it's always a great opportunity for them to learn how to do complaints. And we have lots of complaints that come in. It's a great training opportunity. But we have some amazing staff who take complaints at CPOC and do a really thorough job of making sure that when it's referred over to internal affairs, it has as much information as possible, because we understand sometimes a complainant might refer a complaint to us and then not be interested in speaking to PPD. So we're trying to provide the most information so that it can be the most thorough investigation. But that's sort of my answer for that question.
Danny, thank you. And I just want to add to what you shared and just let the public and our commissioners know that with respect to our ability to get those complaints over to PPD Internal Affairs in a timely manner, given that 5-day window as our goal, we have been consistent and we remain consistent in achieving that goal in the main, with 1 or 2 cases per month where, we're not in that range, but no more than another 3 or 4 days by that, all the complaints are in. just want to make a point for the public's awareness that certainly, as Danny shared, our director of administration, that we certainly have benefited from the arrival of new staff into our organization, to our agency, to help us fulfill our mandate. Certainly, we can only achieve capacity with proper funding. Right now, our funding enables us to have the number of staff that we presently have. And we are extremely grateful for that. At the same time, were our needs for staff to grow, so would our need for funding. And so we encourage the public, if you have a faith in our work, if you understand the importance of our work, please let your elected officials know that CPOC should be funded at a rate that is in alignment with our mission and mandate. And as we become more known within the communities, because that's likely why you're seeing an increase in our numbers, is because we have been doing the work of getting out into the community and making ourselves known to folks that are likely to benefit from our presence. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny, and to our Deputy Executive Director. And I'll just follow up with that question one more time, Carrie. Do we have any attendees with any questions in the chat or with a raised hand?
No, there are no raised hands and no questions in the chat outside the one Danny read.
All right. Thank you so very much. I appreciate you all. And with that being said, the time is now 7:43 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
This is Commissioner Gonzalez. I motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Gonzalez. I always wonder why there is such a delay when that portion of the meeting comes. I would think that all of the commissioners would want to race to that. But that was Commissioner Gonzalez with a motion for us to adjourn tonight's meeting. Does anyone wish to second that motion?
Commissioner Solomon, I second that motion.
Thank you so very much, Commissioner Solomon, for seconding the motion. Motion has been moved and properly second for us to adjourn tonight's meeting at 7:04. Hold on. What's that? All right. Just double checking. We are now okay to adjourn. The time is now 7:44 p.m. We lost a few seconds, but all is well. Thank you again to our CPOC staff for always providing the information that is necessary. Thank you to our commissioners for showing up, for keeping the commission going. And thank you, as always, to our chair for keeping all of us on one accord. We appreciate you all. We appreciate your work and hope that you have a good evening. We look forward to seeing you the next CPOC meeting. Have a great and wonderful evening.
Wait, we have to approve the vote.
We just
Oh, we did?
sorry. I got excited. I didn't even get your approval.
You got the second and you moved on. I
I
think.
know. I moved it on my own because I was ready at 7:44 in the evening. All those in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting, please say aye.
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 Oh my goodness.
Aye.
Not y'all. What is happening? I think you guys want to stay. Danny, you think that's what it is?
They just want you to hang out with us. But I think we got enough.
I think that's what it is. I think we do. Well, the motion has been moved, properly second, and all those in favor have said aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. We are okay to adjourn. Again, good night, everyone, and thank you very much for all of your work, your time, and your effort. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.